All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting for the Meridian Planning and Zoning Commission on May 17th, 2018. Let's begin with roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Holland?
Here.
Commissioner Yearsley?
Here.
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
Here.
Commissioner Perot?
Here.
Commissioner Casanelli?
Here.
Commissioner McCarville?
Here.
What about me?
Commissioner Wilson.
Did I miss someone? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Sweet.
Commissioner Wilson, are you
Commissioner
here?
Wilson is not absent.
Okay.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
All right. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. We do have one change to the agenda, item H-2018-0018, Cherry Blossom Subdivision, will be open for the purpose of continuing this item. It will be open solely for that purpose, so if there's anybody here to testify tonight for that particular application, we will not be taking testimony today. So could I get a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and we have two items on the consent agenda. We have approval of minutes for the May 3rd, 2018 Planning and Zoning meeting, and findings of fact and conclusion of law for H-2018-0031 Calvary Chapel. So could I get a motion to accept the consent agenda? So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So at this time, I'd like to briefly explain the public hearing process for this evening. We will open each item individually and then start with the staff report. The staff will report their findings regarding on how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and uniform development code with the staff's recommendations. After the staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case for the approval of their application and respond to any staff comments. The applicant will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant has finished, we will open to public testimony. There is a sign-up sheet in the back as you entered for anyone wishing to testify. Any person testifying will come forward and be allowed 3 minutes. If you're speaking for a larger group like an HOA and there's a show of hands to represent that group, they will be given up to 10 minutes. After all testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to have the opportunity to come back and respond if they desire. After that, we will close the public hearing and the commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss and hopefully be able to make a recommendation to City Council. So at this time, we are going to continue the public hearing for item H-2018-0018 Cherry Blossom Subdivision. And they have a request for continuance to June 6th in order to allow additional time to work on revisions to the development plan based on the discussions with staff and neighbors at the second neighborhood meeting. Would the applicant like to come forward, please, since this is the second continuance?
John Brecken, Brecken Land Design,
Okay.
6661 Glenwood Street, Garden City.
And could you tell, you've asked for continuance to June 6th. Are you sure you can be ready for that date, or should we look at a date further out? We've got, obviously, a lot of people are interested in this, and we don't want to continue.
Yes.
Again, we usually just allow 2 continuances, so we want to be ready.
Well,
I think the next one would be June 21st.
okay.
Or no, do we have the June 21st? Okay, that's not the, okay.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, just to let you know to put the timing in perspective for you, typically when we're waiting for revised plans, staff likes to have those plans to the clerks and to our office 10 days prior to that public hearing, so that we can modify our staff report and change any conditions so that we can bring forth an accurate recommendation, or at least give you something to take action on. If you look at the calendar, we're getting close. We're probably right there at that 10-day window, so I'm hoping the applicant will have something to us either by tomorrow or first thing Monday so that staff can get on that staff report if there are any specific changes, so that we can keep this moving forward on that June 6th date.
So if you're not ready to give staff your proposal tomorrow, we should probably look at the June 21st date.
Yes, I
Okay.
would request that we go to the June 21st, please.
And is that the one you want, or would you like July? I mean, this is your
Madam
timing.
Chair?
Yeah.
Bill, what's on the schedules for the next two meetings? Just so we are, like 21st and July meeting.
Well, the 21st is shaping up to have quite a few items on it.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what they are off the top of my head, but I know there's at least 5 applications that are in various stages with us that could end up on that hearing or could be bumped to the July 5th hearing. Just don't know at this point.
Okay.
There are quite a few, and some are larger projects as well.
Madam Chair, I just have a feeling we're going to have just a significant discussion or public input on this application, so as we take that into account.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think we want to entertain continuing it another time. So if you're not ready to give staff your proposal tomorrow, let's look at, okay,
Yes, Madam Chair, I request that we go to the 21st.
21st, okay?
Yes.
Okay, so could I get a motion to continue item H-2018-0018 Cherry Blossom Subdivision to the scheduled meeting of June 21st?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded to continue the public hearing H-2018-0018 Cherry Blossom Subdivision to June 21st. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
So at this time, we would like to continue item H-2018-0033 Paramount Self-Storage. This item is continued from May 3rd, and we will begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. As you mentioned, this was the Paramount Self-Storage Project. It was originally scheduled for the May 3rd hearing and was continued because the subject property was not basically posted in accordance with UDC standards. So tonight, we're here to discuss a conditional use permit for a self-storage facility on approximately 3.56 acres of land. You can see in the aerial or the vicinity map here that it does consist of 6 commercial parcels. So at some point, the applicant will want to process a property boundary adjustment with the city to consolidate that property into one large parcel so that they don't have any issues with our building department as they move through that process. So adjacent land uses, we're looking at the Paramount subdivision on the north, zoned R8. Across the street, we have Ventana Commons and Heritage Middle School, zoned R8 and R4. To the east, to the west, we have the Paramount Square Apartments, which are zoned R40. Recording me? Good. And then to the south, we have undeveloped vacant commercial properties, zone CG, which is also part of the Paramount Square subdivision. So in 2003, this property was originally annexed in as part of the Paramount subdivision and part of that PUD. In 2015, the applicant came forward with the Paramount Southeast subdivision, where they went through a conditional use, rezone, and a subdivision process to allow for the apartments and the commercial lots that you see today. So tonight we are discussing, again, a self-storage facility consisting of approximately 11 buildings and 63,825 square feet of enclosed storage. The applicant is not proposing any outdoor storage on this site. Access to this development is provided from a local street, which is North Diver Avenue, which is along the west boundary. And then per the UDC standards for self-storage facilities, the applicant has to provide a secondary access, and that is being located here on Archfield Street along the south boundary. in accordance with UDC standards. Landscaping for the site, the applicant already has constructed a 25-foot wide landscape buffer along North Meridian Road. A 20-foot wide landscape buffer is required along East Ensenada Drive, and the 2 local streets along the west and south boundary require 10-foot landscape buffers, and those will be installed with lot development. In our staff report, we did call out that some of those buffers are deficient, the required number of trees per the UDC, and so we have conditioned the project and the applicant to provide the required number of trees in accordance with UDC standards. I would also mention to you, as we did our review and went through this, we did note we were looking at the self-storage use itself is subject to specific use standards in our code. There were 2 requirements that we brought to your attention in the staff report. The first was in regards to the 25-foot separation between all structures on the site. Staff has worked with the applicant, and they're just going to go ahead and where there are some openings between the buildings along the perimeters, they're just going to connect the buildings and enclose them with additional storage units in accordance with UDC standards. So there aren't any conditions to modify because they're going to comply with code and not have to worry about that 25-foot separation. All of the internal buildings do meet that requirement. So that is a good change from what the applicant's going to do. The other issue that we brought up to you was the requirement for solid gates along the emergency access and the entry into the facility. On occasion, this isn't the first storage facility that's come before you, but we have consistently enforced that condition in our staff report for you to take action on. What we hear from the applicant consistently, typically the applicant is amenable to doing a solid gate when it's the secondary access gate because no one's using it. But what we hear constantly from applicants is if we require a heavy-duty gate for the main entrance into the facility, one, it limits visibility into the site, but 2, the weight of the gate, it's hard to find mechanisms in order to control the gates as you enter and exit facilities. So the applicant is asking for a modification to that condition this evening. So again, they're okay with the emergency access gate being solid. They want to have some relief on the main gate off of that local street on the west boundary. If you look at the site plan, if I back up here, you can see here that it's actually quite a distance away from the street, so visibility would actually be fairly limited into the site if you weren't actually driving down that street, and it shouldn't generate that much traffic because it is a local street. And then also, there is a portion of the gate here where the applicant has the ability to possibly make that portion a solid material. So the location of the gate is in this vicinity, which is pretty well open to, or not very well open, visible on some of the internal buildings. So again, staff is amenable to the applicant's request just to have the main entry gate being more of a open style wrought iron, like you see in most of these storage facilities. But we would like at least some clarification on the applicant as to whether or not this remaining portion would be a solid material and blend in with the rest of the development. The applicant did provide some building elevations for you this evening. Again, they were trying to be consistent with the Paramount theme within that development. So the buildings will consist of stucco, we're looking at corrugated metal, stone wainscot, and then again, some of those tower or decorative roofing elements that you see throughout the design of that subdivision. Further, because this is a commercial development, they are required to comply with the design standards, and staff will ensure 100% compliance with those as they go through that CDC and design review process. But we're fairly confident that these are pretty consistent to what we have on the books today. So as I mentioned to you, we are recommending approval of the project. We did receive written testimony from Mike Wardle, the applicant. Again, the only issue they take concern with is the requirement for the metal gate on the main gates, at least the solid materials for the main gate. We did not receive any other public testimony on this application. I'll conclude my presentation and stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff? Would the applicant like to come forward?
Madam Chair, Commission members, Mike Wardle, Brighton Corporation, 12601 West Explorer Drive. I think staff has really laid it out, and the reason that we want the operable portion of the entrance gate is so that you don't have somebody sitting on the inside waiting to come out, somebody on the outside waiting to go in, and they can't see the queuing aspect of it. So that's really the only issue. And so I believe the modification that we proposed is simply to strike the language that says main access gate, and so it just basically the condition would read, the emergency access gate should be constructed of solid material to impede visibility into the site. Unless you have more issues that you would like to discuss, but I just, well, let me, just for the sake, I'm only going to show you a couple of slides. First, you've already seen, but the project picks up the theme elements from the Paramount project. It has some, residential characters, but all of the theming that we have at our major entrances is carried through in this project. And secondly, as noted by Bill, we are connecting each of the three corners where there was a less than 25-foot separation. Just adds a little bit, but it solves the problem. And then, of course, the solid emergency access gate. So I would answer any questions that you have, but we believe that the project, a commercial project in a commercially zoned parcel of property is appropriate, and ask for your approval.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Fitzgerald.
Mike, can you just touch on what Bill asked about the wall next to the main gate? Is that going to be solid, and then the gate would be see-through?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Fitzgerald, I probably didn't state it carefully enough, but the operable portion of the gate would be open, but the other portion could be solid. That's not an issue.
Okay.
Just the operable.
That's perfect.
I don't want to be sitting out there and confront somebody that we have to start maneuvering or backing up, so.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Casanelli.
Mike, the emergency gate here, what you have on this slide appears to be see-through. Is that, we're going for one that's solid, is that correct?
Commissioner Casanelli, yes, this was as submitted. Staff has noted that the specific standards call for solid, so
Okay.
we're saying that will be.
That will be changed to solid.
In the CZC submittal, it will be a solid.
And then, as a follow-on, that's what the entry gate will essentially look like, the wrought iron there that you
Yes,
pictured.
Commissioner, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Perot.
Mr. Wardle, in your research, do you happen to know how many storage facilities there are within a couple miles on either side? If I thought about it, I probably could remember, but I'm just curious how close you are to other facilities that are similar.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Peralt, there's actually a facility on the west side of Paramount on Linder Road at the westerly entrance south of the high school.
Okay.
There's also one about let me see, it's midway between Meridian Road and Locust Grove on Chinden. Those are the only two that I'm acquainted with within a reasonable distance. And to my knowledge, they are full.
Okay.
So, and we have 280 apartments under construction adjacent to this currently. We suspect there will be some need.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. We have nobody signed up for public testimony on this application, but is there anybody in the room who would like to testify on this application? Okay. Commissioner Fitzgerald.
I move that we close the public hearing on H 2018-0033.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on H-2018-0033. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I mean, if, I like this idea of these storage units being right here next to all the apartments that are going in. I think that'll keep, cut down on all the traffic. And the only thing I would like to additionally state, and I think staff covered it, and I'm sure adhering to the Paramount type structures, it'll be a decent looking structure, but this isn't one that's going to be not seen from all angles. I mean, this is seen from all four sides, so I think especially with it having no outdoor storage units in there, which usually is the worst looking of it, having all indoor storage, but as long as it has an appeal from all four sides, I'm in favor of this.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Fitzgerald.
I agree. As long as it meets the CCC requirements, and I like that the access is not off of Meridian Road, it's off of the internal local roads from inside of Paramount. I think it's good use, and it cuts down on the density that would likely go there if not. So I'm in favor as well.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Holland.
it's probably not the first thing I would choose for that lot, but at the same time, I don't see any big reasons to oppose it. I know a lot of people have a need for storage, and certainly there's a lot of residential around that area, so I'm sure that it'll be utilized as long as they are cautious about how the design looks. And again, I agree with you, since there's not any outdoor storage of vehicles, that tends to be the worst looking part of storage facilities, so I'm okay with it too.
Okay.
Are we going down this way still? I have a question for Bill. What's the height of the exterior wall, and what is in relation to the height of the units? Will the units be seen above the wall is essentially my question from ground level.
And the units are the walls in certain circumstances, but
Madam Chair, members of the commission, that's correct. Yeah, everything is going to be, the building is basically what's screening the facility. So I don't think it's the intent of the applicant to have the internal buildings stick up higher than the perimeter buildings.
Okay, thank you. And a separate question to you, Bill. Can we, as far as when we get time to make a motion, can we condition that the design elements match what they're showing us here tonight, and we don't get something different?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, yes, the elevations as presented to you tonight are what are basically attached to the staff report, but certainly you can state that on the record that you expect them to be constructed to the design that they're showing you this evening, and include those architectural details.
Okay.
Consistent with the Paramount development.
And I believe that that's what will happen. I would just like to see that in there, but otherwise, I think it's going to look, it'll be a good looking project there.
You better make that motion then.
Well, I want to let the rest of my fellow commissioners down there.
I think, Madam Chair, I think it looks just fine. I think it's a good area, a good fit. It makes a lot of sense for that location, given what's around there, and it helps with traffic congestion, not adding to it, so.
Yep. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Casanelli.
after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number H-2018-0033 as presented in staff report for the hearing date of May 17th, 2018, with the following modifications: that we condition that the design elements, just a minute. That we condition that the design elements match up to what was presented to us this evening, and that the modification on the gates, the emergency gate access will be constructed of solid material, but we will allow for the main gate to be see through the wrought iron material.
Second.
And I think that's it.
It has been moved and seconded to approve H-2018-0033 Paramount Self-Storage with modifications. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we'd like to open public hearing for H-2018-0036 Village at Meridian Apartments. We'll begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Give me just a moment here. Alrighty, the next application before you is a request for a conditional use permit. This site consists of 2.44 acres of land. It's zoned CG, located at the southwest corner of East River Valley Street and North Records Way. Adjacent land use and zoning to the north is East River Valley Street and multifamily residential apartments zoned R40. To the south is a parking lot zoned CG. To the east is Records Street and Kleiner Park, zone CG. And to the west are commercial, retail, grocery store, service uses, zone CG. This property was annexed and included in the development agreement for the Meridian Town Center, which is now known as the Village Development, in 2007. It was later included in the CenterCal subdivision plat. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation is mixed use regional. A conditional use permit is requested for a multifamily development consisting of 166 age-restricted 55 and older dwelling units on 2.44 acres of land in the CG zoning district. One 5-story structure is proposed with the first floor consisting of covered parking and the second through fifth floors consisting of dwelling units. A 9,900 square foot clubhouse and open space area with amenities, as shown here, is proposed on the second floor. The concept master plan included in the development agreement for the village depicts future residential on this site. The proposed development plan is consistent with the approved master plan and the development agreement. Access is proposed via North Records Way, a collector street, to the first floor parking area. Local street access is not available to this site. The development is required to comply with the private usable open space standards in the Unified Development Code or apply for alternative compliance to those standards with the Certificate of Zoning Compliance. A total of 0.95 of an acre of common open space is required in accord with UDC standards. A total of 1.14 acres is proposed, consisting of 0.49 of an acre on the second floor on either side of the clubhouse, with 0.65 of an acre consisting of landscaping around the first floor of the building adjacent to abutting collector streets and the sides and rear of the building. Typically, the area around the building and adjacent to collector streets, River Valley and Records, would not qualify towards the minimum requirements unless it's at least 400 square feet in area with a minimum length and width dimension of 20 feet and separated from the street by a berm or constructed barrier at least 4 feet in height. It does meet the minimum area requirements, but does not have a berm or a barrier as required. However, the UDC does allow for alternatives to be approved through the conditional use permit process. Because a 60-acre city park, Kleiner Memorial Park, exists directly across the street to the east from the proposed development, staff is amenable to the applicant's request and recommends the commission approve the proposed open space. The applicant is proposing site amenities as required by the Unified Development Code that fall within the quality of life, open space, and recreation categories as follows. A clubhouse containing a media room, business center, kitchen, game lounge, yoga studio, fitness studio, changing facilities, conference room, and a private dining area, and an outdoor swimming pool, hot tub, dedicated pet area, kitchen, lounge area with a fireplace, numerous seating areas and plazas for social interaction, enclosed bicycle storage, and a bocce ball court are also proposed. Off-street parking is proposed in accord with UDC standards for age-restricted elderly housing, and that is a half of a space per one-bedroom unit and 2 spaces per dwelling unit for 2 and over bedrooms. Based on this requirement, a minimum of 188 spaces are required, with at least 70 of those being in an enclosed garage. A total of 209 spaces are proposed in the parking garage on the first floor, with an additional 9 parallel spaces along Records Way for guests and/or deliveries. A parallel loading area along the rear of the building off the alley is also proposed, which allows for another approximate 9 spaces, which can be utilized for deliveries, maintenance, or service employees. Staff is amenable to the proposed parking due to the following reasons. First, it is anticipated that the age-restricted units will only house one person or a couple, regardless of the number of bedrooms. And with various shopping, restaurant, and service uses, including a grocery store in close proximity to this site, and likely a transit stop nearby, it is possible that some residents may not have a vehicle at all or only have one, which would reduce the parking count actually needed for each dwelling unit. Comments were received from Valley Regional Transit in regard to the location of a transit stop on this property. Staff did note that in the staff report. They don't feel one is necessary at this time, but feels one could be accommodated in the future if needed. Therefore, staff is recommending condition number 1.1.3 is removed, which requires a bus stop to be provided on the site if determined needed by VRT. Conceptual building elevations were submitted as shown for the proposed structure. Building materials consist of stucco and brick veneer. The architectural character of the structure is required to comply with the standards listed in the City of Meridian Architectural Standards Manual. Written testimony was received from John Wardle, Brighton Corporation, in response to the staff report. He did request condition number 1.1.3 pertaining to the requirement for a bus stop be removed as mentioned by staff. Staff is recommending approval with conditions. Staff will stand for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay.
Madam Chair?
Oh, Commissioner Casanelli.
Can you describe some of the open space there, 0.49 of an acre on the second floor of either side of the clubhouse? Is that patios coming off the second floor? Is that what that is?
Yes, let me hang on just a second. Yeah, I just ran through that, but he'll probably cover it in his presentation as well.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
It's covered in your outline there too, Mr. Casanelli.
Any other questions for staff? Would the applicant like to come forward?
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, my name is John Wardle. My address is 12601 West Explorer Drive. I work for Brighton and I'm representing this project this evening. Sonia, if you can turn that slide over to, thank you. That's all right. So I'll go high level, and if we need to dig into some of the details, we sure can tonight. But as Sonia indicated, this project is located at the southwest corner of River Valley and Records. This would be, for a point of reference of the village, it would be right behind the co-op and right across the street from Kleiner Park. We are proposing 166 residential units, which would be age qualified, 55 plus required to live here. It is a 5-story building. The first floor is completely parking, all covered, all enclosed for the 209 parking spaces which were discussed earlier. There will also be a first floor reception area where guests and residents coming in off of Records would come into that reception area or leasing office, and then they would go up in an elevator to the residents. They'd be buzzed in at that point. So the second through the fifth floors would be residential units, and then on the second floor, and I'll get into those details, Commissioner Casanelli, would be the community spaces, both active and passive or social spaces. We're proposing almost a 10,000 square foot clubhouse in this project for the use of the residents. And as I mentioned, there's a 2,000 square foot leasing office, reception area, mail parcel area on the first floor, plus the enclosed parking spaces and enclosed bike storage. Oops, jumpy. This next one gives you the location of the project at River Valley and Records. Right here is the co-op. And and then the rest of the village is down here with Kleiner Park across the street. And then in context, the building is essentially an E. The back of the building is against the commercial drive, and then the E opens up to Kleiner Park. And each of these, many of the units will open up to the second floor recreation areas here. And that's it in context as well. Again, the first floor is completely parking area. The access into the building is through a single point. It's coming in off of Record Street. And it will come into the parking garage. The residents will have assigned parking stalls, and there will also be some guest parking there on underneath the structure. Along Records, we are proposing 9 parallel parking spaces, which predominantly would be for that guest who comes quickly, wants to drop something off, a delivery, those type of things. In the back of the project and the commercial alley, we also have additional parallel parking spaces for moving trucks, deliveries, big deliveries, service vehicles, that type of thing. That somebody's going to be there a little bit longer, and we need a place for them, they would be able to do that in the back of the building. Trash as well is in the rear of this building. Will be outside, but in that commercial alley. On the second level, going up one level, is this outdoor amenity area on each side, or which would be between the E legs coming out. This is rotated. I just did it so you could kind of see some of these elements. So north is to your left here. This is showing the main level, the reception area, leasing office, and the landscaping around. Going up one level to the second story here, showing the outdoor spaces, and I'll get into those details a little bit more here. And then one more slide here is everything in context, all of the landscaping that will come around this building, allowing for a mix of a high quality urban type living opportunity in the village, which is going to be unique. There's not a more dynamic location where you could have housing with the retail uses, the recreation uses, and even the employment uses here in this area. I wanted to focus just a few minutes on the amenities in this project. On the second floor in the clubhouse, there will be a fitness and yoga studios, changing areas, locker rooms as well. There'll be a kitchen, a private dining area, and also a catering lounge. There'll be a media room for movies, that type of thing, conference room, business center, and then there'll also be a large game lounge where you would expect tables, also some social aspects there. The outdoor spaces, there's 2 areas. One is on the north leg and one is on the south leg. On the north leg, calling it the social area, where there'll be gardens, raised planters, fireplaces, seating areas covered as well, an outdoor kitchen, and then a social plaza in the middle where there's an opportunity for a lot of chairs and other things that people can be out there. They don't have to go down to the street level, but they can come down to the second level, and that can be their kind of quiet outdoor space as well as their own private outdoor spaces in each of their units. On the south side is what we call the active area. In the community center, these areas right here, this is the fitness facility and the yoga lounge and the changing rooms. So we wanted to have that relate to the outdoor spaces, which are going to be a little bit more active. A pool, a hot tub. There's also an area here out over the parking garage looking to Kleiner Park, which could be an outdoor fitness area. Area for games and grass, could be bocce, could be some other things like that, as well as a pet area, giving the residents an opportunity within the structure to take their pets down to do whatever pets are going to do without having to go down to the street. They could if they wanted to, but it allows them to do that here in the building. There was a comment, staff has addressed it. We are asking that the condition be removed for the parking, or not for the parking, but for the bus stop. We met with VRT yesterday. We've discussed it with ACHD on what this location could be. ACHD is saying that this will be a stop signed intersection, meaning VRT would want a stall or a bus stop on the north side of the intersection. We're grateful that that condition could be removed or will be removed. We're concerned about the potential impact that a large transit station would have at this location. We believe that there are other locations within the village that could accommodate that, as they've done in other places, but we are asking that that condition be removed from this. In conclusion, we just ask for your approval for this project. We are very excited about this opportunity. It's needed. This is the right place for a mixed-use project like this. We're also very excited about the 55-plus aspect. There are a lot of great things that this demographic will benefit from being located at the village. The services that are there, the retail that's there, and also the recreation opportunity that's just right across the street. And this is a major investment for us. This will be, a $40 million project. And we're excited about this investment into Meridian. So we request your approval this evening and also request that condition 1.1.3 be removed. And I stand for any questions.
Any questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Yearsley.
can you go back to the second floor layout?
Sorry?
So on the outskirt of all that will be, I guess, is it condos or rental units?
These are all rental units.
So you'll have rental units on the outside of the second floor as well?
Yes.
Okay. And then the rest of the 2 through 5 will have rental units kind of in the E. Is that correct?
Correct. Commissioner Yearsley, to answer your question a little bit more specifically, on the second floor, this area in the middle will not have any residential units on it. The third floor, there'll be some of that area that will also be part of the clubhouse.
Okay.
But on the rest of the second floor, all these units will open up. They will each have their own private space, but they will open up to this interior area, as will the units above them. So, yes, there will be units looking into and taking advantage of that open common area.
Okay. I think this looks pretty cool because when I first looked at it, I thought it was all one piece, and I was thinking rooftop access for open space, but I like the open space there on the second floor. I think it makes a lot of sense. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Casanelli.
the parking garage itself, is that gated? So, because you're having visitor guest parking in that garage, are they able to just drive in and drive out? There's no gated access there?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Casanelli, we've discussed that back and forth. If there are gates inside, it will be held back. There will be designated guest parking areas inside the garage itself. But I don't believe we have settled on that gated aspect. There won't be a gate that makes it difficult to come in, but there could be a gate in that structure underneath, set back, would allow guests to get into the reception area as well into the elevators to go up. But that would be held inside of the garage if we do a gate.
So guests could drive in and drive out and wouldn't have to enter a
Yes.
gate every time? Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Steve Smiley. We'll go to public testimony now. I have Steve Smiley, who's indicated he would like to testify. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Steve Smiley. I reside at 3662 East Granger Drive, which is about a block away from this project. Several questions and concerns that I have. Number one, my experience with the Brighton Corporation has been excellent. I think this is something that I would have no objection to the concept of a 55-plus unit there. My concern is with the density. And may I remind the Commission that this strip from the village down Eagle Road to Ustick has over 1,700 apartment units, will have a population of over 3,000 people. And we have a little two-lane road, Records, that's supposed to handle that traffic. Hello? Please do the math on this. 9 parking places on the street for 166 units? That makes no sense whatsoever. I really, really would recommend that we take a very, very serious look at the combination. I mean, we're already very, very begrudgingly getting used to the fact that we're going to have 4-story windows looking into our backyard. And there's absolutely nothing we can do about it from the Regency apartments that are under construction right now. There's another 14 units that are going to be built, 64-plex units just down the street. There are already condos all the way down Record Street. People are already using our street, Granger Street. Construction workers are parking in front of our house because there's no place for them to park. We already have a real problem there with what is going on with the Regency. People are using our road as a shortcut to get over to Cloverdale, and with the construction on Cloverdale, it makes it even worse. We're getting a lot of traffic through there. Records simply cannot handle this traffic the way it is constructed now. And the street parking will be especially problematic because that is a designated bike lane. And when you start having a lot of street traffic on a bike lane area, that's very problematic. You know, I like the idea of a 55-plus development. I love the concepts here. I think this is a great idea, but I really do think it needs some work as far as parking. The other thing is, when it's a 55-plus community, nobody has said anything about staff parking. Will that staff parking be taken out of the units that are already there? Because there needs to be 20 or 30 staff parking. If they have events there, they'll have people that'll be coming in to do catering, so forth. There'll be not only the large trucks to make deliveries, but there'll be people in smaller vehicles that are coming, that are serving, that are working, coming and going during the day, people coming to visit their parents, grandkids, and so forth, which is absolutely necessary, absolutely important. But when you put it on a narrow, stop sign regulated street like Records, which is already getting to be quite busy, quite crowded, we have no problem with that. But when that gets crowded, as we all know, Eagle Road is backed up for a solid mile in every direction from 7:30 to about 8:30, and then from 3:30 all the way through about 6. We all know that. And so what is happening is people are discovering Records, and they're using it as a shortcut, and we have people speeding by there 2 o'clock in the morning, so forth. It's getting to be a problem. And we welcome the community. We understand it's zoned for that. But I really think that the commission needs to take a very, very serious look at the densities. They need to take a very, very serious look at the dangers of the street parking, especially on a designated bike lane road. That is a real problem. I got nailed by somebody opening their door when
that was your bell. So could you wrap up your thoughts?
Okay. I'm just saying, please take a look at these things. We're all in favor of the project, but I think there's some fine-tuning needs to be done.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. That's all I have signed up to testify, but is there anybody else in the room who would like to testify at this time? Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward and address those concerns?
Madam Chair, for the record, my name's David Turnbull, 12601 West Explorer Drive in Boise. I appreciate Mr. Smiley's comments. I would note that we are really honored to be doing this project. When CenterCal put this property on the market, they did pretty much a nationwide offering on this, and it came down to 3 finalists. We were one of the 3 finalists, and we were honored to be selected to do this project, and I think they did it because of our reputation within the community for the projects that we do. I'd note that I believe that in the DA for the whole CenterCal Village project, there is a requirement for residential uses in this area approximating over 160 units. I think that's right in the development agreement. And I think we've taken a lot of time to design this site to provide for all of the concerns that Mr. Smiley addressed, for staff parking, We anticipate, maybe I should just step back and talk a little bit about what the nature of this project is. This is a highly amenitized social environment for people that are 55 plus. The clubhouse facility in this project is probably in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 times larger than you would get for a comparably sized project of a non-age qualified community. So it's a highly socialized environment with programming and social directors. That said, there are 5 full-time employees that will be on this site, and we provided, as we mentioned, parking for those employees, both on the interior of the facility. We also have on the back side, the commercial alley side, where the retail uses are to the west. We have loading zones, we have service zones, we have some additional parking back in that area. As far as the staging for the construction of the project, no doubt that there will be some disruption. I mean, we can't avoid that. We are building something that would be akin to an urban setting, and that's what the village really has created out here. We have worked with CenterCal to designate staging areas and parking areas for our construction workers, and we will work hard to minimize the impacts on the surrounding neighborhoods. So, you know, I think what we presented here is just absolutely groundbreaking for, you know, for Meridian. It's structured parking, it's highly amenitized. This second story deck where we have the outdoor common area overlooking the park is just going to be something else. We're spending over $1 million just on that rooftop terrace amenity package. So as mentioned, the only comment we made on the staff report, which related to the transit stop, I believe that Sonia agreed with our request to remove that since it's already has a place to be accommodated on the opposite side of the intersection. And really having a transit stop in front of this project would be very, very problematic and something akin to a deal killer. So we ask that that condition be removed. With that, I'll stand for any further questions that you might have.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Holland.
Mr. Turnbull, can you help address the designated bike lane concern that Mr. Smiley had?
Yes, the bike lane will remain. The bike lane will essentially remain in its current condition. We will be taking the parallel parking out of our site, so the bike lane will remain.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley.
Couple quick questions. Parking. So this is part of the CenterCal development overall. Is there a cross-access easement for parking? Because there shows a parking lot to the south of this project. It can overflow parking, park in that area if needs be, if you have a large event or you know, that type of stuff, or what's that?
Well, I'm not sure what we're referring to any large events. So we're not anticipating large events. This is not a facility where we're inviting, you know, or we're staging parties. This is not an event center.
Well,
so,
and I don't mean that, but if you have like a family are coming to visit the family for a day or something like that, one family for a large party, that, you know, you have a lot of kids come at one time, that you might need additional parking, you know, is there a cross-access easement for parking to the south?
And excuse me, Madam Chair, Commissioner Yearsley, the answer to that question is that the CenterCal wants to preserve its parking for its office uses.
Okay.
So they're not amenable to a cross-parking agreement. You know, they just feel like they need to preserve that for their current and future office expansion needs. And,
okay.
So I can't offer that to you, no.
Okay. It was just more of a question than anything else.
Right.
I think there was something else. Oh, did this require a traffic study through ACHD?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Yearsley, I believe that the traffic study that CenterCal did covered the intended uses. As I mentioned before, residential was anticipated as part of that use. So I believe it was covered under ACHD's requirements of Center Cal, and they have imposed no additional comments or conditions on this application.
Okay.
Mr. Turnbull, I just want to confirm something in the staff report. Under normal circumstances, your structure would be required to have a minimum of 188 parking spaces, with 70 of those being an enclosed garage. And what you're proposing in your enclosed garage is 209, which is already over your minimum. So that the 9 spots you consider out front are truly coming and going, as well as inside the garage has guest
Correct.
spots. Okay. And all the apartments have assigned spots, so they know moving in that that's how many spots they're allowed.
Yeah, we hadn't addressed that, you know, as far as having assigned spots or not, but we did.
I'm sorry, I thought he said in his original presentation that they would be assigned.
Madam Chair, I did say that there would be assigned spots, that each resident would know how much they would be allocated, whether those are numbered or allocated specifically for them underneath there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that they would have a specific one. That could be the case, but I can't commit that that we're doing that.
But they're allocated to the
Yes.
residents, and they know moving in how many cars
That's correct.
they can bring in there. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Fitzgerald.
Mr. Turnbull, so just so we're on the record, so you have a total of 227 spots with the 9 in the back and the 9 in the front and the 209 underneath, is that correct?
I think that number
Does that math work?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you.
I know it's 209 enclosed. I know there's 9 out front, and there's in the back. We got it correct. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Barreau.
What's the height of the building, and also in relationship to the apartments that are on the north side? I guess it's northeast of these. And then, I mean, can you give us a frame of reference for how tall this is going to be in comparison to the height of the village buildings and then the apartments on the north side?
The height of the building will be under 65 feet.
65?
65. I couldn't tell you what the height of the apartments are to the north.
Okay.
Those are the 4-story apartments with pitched roofs. So, you know, they're going to be probably somewhat less than that, but comparable. Ours is a flat roof, theirs is a pitched roof.
Say that again?
Ours will be a flat roof, theirs is a pitched
Yeah.
roof.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, could I get a motion to close the public hearing for item H-2018-0036, Village at Meridian Apartments?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for H-2018-0036. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Earsley.
I really like this project. I think the look is really cool. When I first looked at the floor plan, I thought it was one big solid building, and having it look like an E with amenities in the center, I think is really cool. I think that really makes this stand out. It gives every apartment at least a balcony and ways to look in, and so I think it actually will work out well. With regard to density, you know, as he states, it was actually planned to have this already here. And unfortunately, well, I don't know if it's unfortunately or not, but this is becoming a center point in the community, and everyone wants to be here. You've got great shopping in this area. You've got a great park. You've got a lot of different activities going in this area. You know, traffic is an issue and will always continue to be an issue, and but I don't know how to address this without taking up more real estate on the ground and taking up more parking elsewhere within that Center Cal footprint. So I think this looks out really well. given that it's a 55 and older, you won't have a significant amount of children, or I think your traffic will be, reduced because of that. Regarding the bike lane along the side of the road and the cars parked between the bike lane and the traffic. Interestingly enough, I just spent 2 days at a pedestrian and bicycle safety class for my job, and one of the things that they always talked about is that's where they want to put the bikes, is right where they're shown, and it's actually the safest location for them. There is always the potential for people to open their door when they're riding their bikes by, but that's why they're meant to try to have enough space that they can avoid those. So I think that's designed accordingly. So I think it looks good. I don't know if I have an issue with the height. It's far enough away from any residential that I don't think it'll be too overwhelming, and I'm in favor of this project.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you've got the open park on the other side, and you have comparable buildings to the north, and the more commercial side of it, the solid wall aspect of it facing the back. I'm the same way. When I first looked at these plans, I was thinking it was just one big solid thing, but this actually looks very airy and inviting, and not the massive structure I had envisioned on just the outline. And I think the second floor amenities are a really intriguing way to do things. If my husband had less cars, I would consider moving there. Yeah. But I think it works out well, and the parking is actually more than what we get on some of the more open structures, that take up more space. So I would be in favor of this.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Wilson.
I'll be brief because everyone else kind of mentioned it, but no, I think this is a really cool facility. I think it's modern. I've seen apartments like this. I had a friend who lived in one, and he was younger, but I just think that it's just it really kind of ups sort of this these multi-residential areas. I mean, I think this is kind of the cream of the crop, kind of the highest echelon kind of apartment complex you can have, and it's really neat where it's located, and I think it fits that area really well, and I'm in favor of it.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Holland.
I tend to agree. I think I wish more apartment complexes were developed this way. And the only thing that makes me sad is that it's 55 and older, so that I can't move into it too. I think there's some really nice amenities here, and I also really appreciate that Brighton put the parking on the first floor rather than having a surface lot. Because I think when you're in an area like the Village where there's a lot of great amenities to enjoy, the more parking lots there are, the less you get to enjoy the green space. So I really appreciate that they've done that, and I agree that because it's a 55 and older neighborhood, it will cause less of the traffic issues than you would have if you had younger families in there that have to transport kids to different events. So I'm in favor of the project.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Fitzgerald.
Yeah, my hat's off to Brighton because I've been kind of envisioning this from having lived in the East Coast for a long time. So kudos to you guys. I think the design's great. It's a lifestyle center within a lifestyle center, if that makes any sense. I think you're trying to get people out of their cars and walking in the park and walking to the movies and the shops nearby and not have to have traffic. And so I think it's exactly what you guys said. The structure is not a big box. It's it lets the air and the design kind of work for the people that are living there. And so I'm in favor.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Casanelli.
I'm gonna throw a little objection into this. I do think it's a cool project. I've lived in areas where there's similar projects, and it is neat looking. I like all the amenities of it. My problem is I even though it's 55 and older, to me it's an active 55 and older. Yes, if you live there, you're going to walk to the movies, you can walk to the co-op and you know, get dinner and that sort of thing. But I think there's going to be almost 2 cars per every unit, and I think there's going to be probably 2 people working in every unit, which means daily trips. So I think that I have a gut feeling that we're underestimating the parking. I don't think that this is going to fit a traditional elderly, you know, the parking that was for age-restricted elderly housing. I think it is going to fit more traditional in terms of the number of vehicles that are going to be there. Sure, on a Friday night, I'm going to walk over to the park, I'm going to walk to the movie, I'm going to go have dinner in the village, and I don't have to get my car. But I think Monday through Friday, in the morning and in the evening, there's going to be 2 cars going in and out for every unit. That's how I see it. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking they're going to be using that parking lot to the south. They're going to, you know, people are going to be parking over at Kleiner Park. That's my gut feeling on it. Otherwise, I think it's a cool project.
Any other comments?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Brewer?
Overall, it's a beautiful structure, and I think the common area designs are fantastic. I do have some small concerns about parking as well. My concerns, I think, are mostly just that element of having, you know, if they live in this really awesome facility, they're going to have a lot of friends and a lot of family. They're going to want to come use it with them. And so I'd like to see some additional parking for visitors and guests, because I would imagine that unless there's a limitation on how many people can use the amenities for each unit, you might have a lot of that happening. So that's my only thought on that. Otherwise, I think it's a great location. It's really nicely done.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Casanelli?
just a follow-up question to that. Bill, do you have off the top of your head the parking requirements for standard, comparably sized apartment units, not age-restricted?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, we've brought forward a lot of multifamily developments. I think that's your question, is what are the parking ratios for multifamily standards?
Correct.
So in the UDC, it's 1.5 stalls for 1-bedroom units, and it's 2 stalls for 2- and 3-bedroom units. And half of those have to be covered.
Did you apply these same standards to this development at the same time, or this a little bit reduced based on those standards?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, as Sonia presented to you this evening, we applied the age-restricted standards. It was 0.5 for the 1-bedroom units, and then 1 stall, or was it 2 stalls for the 2-bedroom units?
Okay.
And this being a conditional use permit, this is the last stop, right?
I just want to add to my comments there how I feel. Again, love the project. I think I think we're short-sighted on the parking. Based on that, I mean, if we were assuming all 166 of those are 1-bedroom, I'm sure they're going to be a mix. But even at just 1-bedroom, that's 249 stalls. We're short of that. I think this should be held to non-age restricted standards and not age restricted standards.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
I'm going to have this conversation probably until we can figure out actual hard data in this town. We have to use UDC kind of concepts. And I drive around this town constantly. All I see is empty black space, and it's ridiculous. I don't like big black heat sinks, and that's where around these apartment buildings, I see that all the time. And we gotta start utilizing good design, and good design is building on top of parking garages instead of using big blacktop. And I think this is a great project, and I don't want to see it kind of go away because of, we're concerned about something that's an amorphous number that's out there that nobody seems to be able to point to.
Sure. Madam Chair.
Commissioner Wilson?
I just want to add too, they're managing the parking situation, you know, if you're a resident. I mean, I don't know, this isn't, again, an abstraction. There's going to be a mechanism in order to manage that. So we're in line with UDC, and there's a mechanism by which renters are going to register their vehicles. I think we're covered.
Madam Chair, I tend to agree with both the comments here.
Yeah. I would, you know, I think some of our heartburn over other parking facilities has been there is no option, you know, has been when they're totally enclosed and there's no other option for parking. And yes, it may take a few steps, but there's nothing to say that they couldn't park out in front of the co-op. They couldn't park, I mean.
For guests.
Yeah, for guests.
Yep.
You know, we've got some other projects that have gone in that are totally landlocked where there is no other parking options. I think around the village, there's a lot of parking.
Madam Chair, I have a tendency to agree with you, and I also think that this is a 55 and older, and not everybody will be 55 and have jobs. I think you'll have a good variety of those that are retired versus
70.
those that are working and don't really want a house. So I with this facility, I'm not sure I'm as concerned about parking as I would be with a normal residential unit.
Any other comments, discussion?
Madam Chair.
I think, one last point. I think we didn't really discuss it much, but I think the condition of 1.1.3 being removed and having that stop out front for transit is a good idea. There's no sense in having that be on that side of the street at that corner. It should be on the other side of the street.
Agreed.
So,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Holland.
The only other comment I would make too when it comes to the parking situation is that when you look at the village, I think the kind of residents who would want to move into a place to get rid of their cars, this would probably be the kind of place you'd want to move to because you've got access to all the other amenities. So that's the only other point I'd make. And with that, I'd be willing to make a motion.
Mr. Holland.
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number H-2018-0036 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of May 17th, 2018, with the following modification that we strike the condition 1.1.3 pertaining to the requirement for bus stop to be provided if determined necessary by VRT, so that we would delete that condition.
Second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded to approve H-2018-0036 Village at Meridian Apartments with modifications. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Chris, do you have the tally on the votes since we were not unanimous?
Yes, I can do a roll call vote if you'd like.
No, that's fine, as
Okay.
long as you
No, I
got
do
the
have
record,
this.
we're good. Okay. All right, on to our next item. At this time, we'd like to open the public hearing for item H-2018-0032 Entrada Farms. And we'll begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The next applications before you are a request for annexation and zoning, preliminary plat, and a conditional use permit. This site consists of 18.18 acres of land zoned RUT in Ada County, located at 3880 and 3882 West Franklin Road, on the north side of Franklin, west of 10 Mile Road. Adjacent land use and zoning to the north and east are multifamily residential apartments zoned R15, and directly to the east there is some vacant undeveloped land zoned LO. To the south is West Franklin Road and land in the development process residential zoned R8 and R15. And to the west is single-family rural residential agricultural land zoned RUT in Ada County. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation is high-density residential, which is a range of 15 to 40 units per acre with a target density of 16 to 25 units per acre. This is within the 10-mile interchange specific area plan. The applicant is requesting annexation and zoning of 19.07 acres of land with an R40 zoning district. The applicant is proposing a multifamily development consisting of a mix of townhome and apartment-style units, all considered multifamily as far as the UDC is concerned, consistent with the high-density residential future land use map designation. A preliminary plat is proposed consisting of 60 building lots and 3 common lots on 18.18 acres of land in the R40 zoning district. A gross density of 15.3 units per acre is proposed consistent with the high-density residential designation. The subdivision is proposed to develop in one phase. Access is proposed from Franklin Road. The stub street at the east boundary of the site, Perugia Street, is proposed to be extended with a bridge over the Kennedy Lateral and stubbed at the west boundary for future extension. Driveways or private streets are proposed for internal access north of Perugia Street. The Kennedy Lateral runs along the east side of the site and is proposed to be piped for public safety reasons. The drain runs across the southwest corner of the site, and the applicant is requesting a waiver from council to not pipe that facility. A minimum of 1.82 acres of qualified open space is required to be provided with the subdivision, along with one site amenity. A conditional use permit is requested for a multifamily development consisting of 278 dwelling units in an R40 zoning district. The units are proposed to consist of 198 townhome-style units and 80 typical apartment-style units. Again, all classified as multifamily. These are just a style of the dwellings, in a mix of 2- and 3-story structures. A site plan was submitted, as shown, that depicts how the site is proposed to develop. The 2-story front-loaded townhome-style structures are proposed along the west boundary of the site, transitioning to the 2- and 3-story rear-loaded townhome-style structures. The apartment-style structures are proposed adjacent to Franklin Road along the entryway into the development. All units will provide the minimum private usable open space area. A minimum of 2.06 acres of qualified open space and site amenities are required in accord with UDC standards, in addition to that required with the subdivision that I previously mentioned. A total of 5.3 acres of qualified open space is proposed in excess of UDC standards, along with the following site amenities: an outdoor pool complex with restroom facilities, a dual slope pavilion, playground equipment, a single zip line, 5-station fitness facility, full-size basketball court, a dog park, open grassy play fields with minimum dimensions of 100 feet by 50 feet, and pathways. These amenities fall within the quality of life, open space, and recreation categories as required, and staff feels they are commensurate with the proposed development. Parking is proposed in accord with UDC standards, actually in excess of standards. A minimum of 526 spaces are required, 278 of which are required to be covered. A total of 735 spaces are proposed, with 336 of those being covered. That is an extra 209 spaces above and beyond UDC standards. A 25-foot wide landscape street buffer is required along Franklin Road. They have approximately, I believe it was a 50-foot buffer. A commuter ride pad is proposed along Franklin Road for a future transit stop. Conceptual building elevations were submitted for the proposed multifamily structures, as shown. The front-loaded 2-story units, rear-loaded 2- and 3-story units, and the 3-story apartment-style units. The site plan that I showed previously here, where's it at? The colored one on the right depicts the location of each type of structures on the site. The orange being the rear-loaded 2- and 3-story, 3-story units, pink being the rear-loaded 2-story units, green being the front-loaded 2-story units, and the blue being the apartment-style units there along the frontage. The architectural character of the structures is required to comply with the design standards listed in the City of Meridian Architectural Standards Manual and the 10-mile interchange specific area plan. The applicant, John Carpenter, the applicant's representative, has submitted a written letter in response to the staff report. Staff is recommending approval with the conditions in the staff report and a development agreement. Staff is recommending that condition number 1.5.7 be stricken as it does not apply to this application. It refers to an amended development agreement requirement. With this application, a new development agreement is required. And since there was several items noted in the applicant's response that requires staff's response, I am going to go ahead and just go through that real quick. Kind of answer any questions beforehand. So not sure if you guys have a copy of that in front of you or not, but the first item is the applicant has requested to make a note that the building floor plans and associated square footages are approved as submitted. Section 11.2.8 for R40 references 1,000 square foot minimums for dwelling units. We do have some under that. The requirement is actually 1,000 square foot property size, meaning lot size. So that does not refer to the dwelling unit size. So we're good on that. Please make it clear what the setbacks are to be. The applicant has submitted, it's kind of hard to see on these little drawings, but if you note these where my pointer are, little site layouts, what they've proposed is in accord with our UDC standards for setbacks. So just acknowledging that on the record. Let's see here, C1C, we have modified the lot sizes to accommodate the things I previously mentioned, noted. The open space is the same, so we're good on that. Let's see here, they've provided the driveway to the west at the north end of the property as staff recommended. Landscaping, they were just wanting to note that there are no street buffers required along Perugia and Entrada, as those are local streets, not collectors. Staff is in agreement with that statement. Purdom Drain, they included a note that the neighbor to the west requested some space between his property and their residential space. He likes the idea of the drain as a buffer. The neighbor has a small dog kennel and prefers that he not get complaints for his dogs barking. You can see here, corner here where my pointer is, that's where the Purdom Drain is located, and that is a requirement for council to waive if they so choose to, so that's up to them. Number 5, conditional use permit, clarify that the submitted floor plans and dwelling unit sizes are acceptable. Yes, there are no minimum dwelling size requirements in the UDC, and as I noted, the setbacks comply with what they've shown. There is no landscape buffer required at the west boundary because that is a residential use and what is proposed is a residential use, so there is no buffer requirement. Trash enclosures, staff just noted that they needed to make sure that their trash enclosures met the requirements of Republic Services. They have coordinated with them, and anyway, just the plans submitted with their certificate of zoning compliance need to comply with Republic Services requirements. They have noted some of the open space will be on private lots. That is fine because we're looking at it as an overall site for the multifamily development. ACHD required a turn lane at North Entrada Way in Franklin. We accommodated this for them, which took out a minor amount of landscaping. That's fine. Staff's in agreement with that. They are requesting condition number 1.2.3. There is a requirement for the storm swale along Franklin to be vegetated as set forth in the UDC, and they want to add the language, if allowed by ACHD. Staff is fine with that addition to that language because they are providing a wider street buffer, so that is fine for that. And they are requesting condition number 1.3.4 requires that the plat records prior to submittal of a certificate of zoning compliance application. They are requesting that they be able to submit a CZC application prior to the final plat being recorded. We've had some problems with setbacks being complied with when the plat is not recorded first. That's the reason for the requirement. Staff is not necessarily against them coming forward first with the certificate of zoning compliance, just as long as everything is perfectly clear, which they have made clear in their exhibits with their lot setbacks. So staff's okay if you choose to change that. And then finally, condition number 1.5.7 refers to amending a development agreement, and that's what I noted earlier, it just needs to be deleted. It doesn't apply to this application. It was inadvertently left in. So staff will stand for any questions. I think that covers everything, but the applicant can correct me if I left anything out.
Any questions for staff? So basically, everything that that you guys didn't have worked out, you've now got worked out.
Yes.
Is the gist of all that? Okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Fitzgerald.
Sonia, is there a reason that we would allow the CCCB to be reviewed prior to final plat? I mean, is it a timing mechanism for them? I guess I can ask the question, but I was going to get your thoughts.
Commissioners, you know, these are kind of odd. You know, usually they don't subdivide multifamily developments, but we've been seeing more and more of it, especially with this developer. It's just something that we've practiced in the past, is having, if there's a plat, having it recorded prior to issuance of any permits. It's just something to kind of add as an added safeguard that we don't mess anything up, and we make sure that all the buildings comply with the setback requirements.
Well, we kind of have the teeth. That's when we have teeth, right?
We've been very careful on this one, and I'm pretty sure that there won't be any mishaps on this one.
Okay.
But that's the reason for it.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley.
So does this require an on-site caretaker for this type of a development? Kind of like where we do apartments, you know, you have to have someone on site to manage.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Yearsley, Commissioners, we never require an on-site caretaker. We do require a property management office.
Okay.
So it does not necessarily require somebody to live there, though.
Okay. And but this does require a property management office, correct?
Yes, because it is a multifamily development, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Would the applicant like to come forward?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, my name is James Doolin. My address is 1338 South Foothill Drive, Salt Lake City, Utah. Sonia did an excellent job describing the development. The one thing I just wanted to address, the reason why we're asking for the ability to submit our CZC prior to the plat being recorded is because we have a current development in with the city right now where we've recorded the plat. We've found an issue. Now we have to go back and amend that plat or correct that plat. So for us, we'd just like to make sure the plat is fine, the CZC is fine prior to us recording the plat, so we don't have to go back through the county to record the plat. So it's just one instance that we had with an existing development, and I think that we've addressed most of the issues now. I don't see that coming up, but just to ensure that, we like that ability. And with that being said, I'll stand for any questions.
I do have a question. With the individual lots, what's the plan with your CC&Rs and to keep this whole thing looking as one?
So we'll record a CC&R in conjunction with recording the plat. The CC&Rs require the HOA maintains all exterior of the development. So exteriors of buildings, landscaping, everything outside of the structure will be maintained by the HOA.
Commissioner Yearsley.
Is your intent to sell these off to individuals, or I'm
No,
just?
they'll be rentals.
There'll be rentals, okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Perot.
I have some questions about the renderings that were submitted. Is there any way we could pull those up? The townhomes and the apartments, the renderings just look structurally very different from each other to me. I don't know if there was an observation by any of the other commissioners of that being the case. Could you comment on that for me?
Thematically, we tried to tie the theme of the buildings together. We did want to have, for the 10-mile interchange, it requires some diversity in building type. So we've incorporated apartment-style buildings and then 2-story and 2- and 3-story unit buildings. They all have the same theme, same color theme, or same color palette, kind of a craftsman style to it. And so we have different buildings to provide some diversity within the development, but all tied to a common theme in the palette and the overall architectural style.
Yeah, I like, some of that has a real clean look to it, but then there is some diversity. I like the little overhangs over the garage doors and stuff.
If I may comment, and I realize that these are, examples, but the townhomes look residential and craftsman style, but the 3 stories to me look a lot more like a business building. That's just my observation.
Okay. BSU dorms.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair, if I may, I would
Sure,
like to
Sonia.
make one additional statement regarding the plat recording after the certificate of zoning compliance is issued. If the commission chooses to change that condition, I would recommend that it be added, the language be added that the applicant does so at their own risk. You can't ensure a building complies with the setbacks of the lot unless a lot actually exists. And what they're asking for, the lot won't actually exist at that time. If something happens and their plans change just a little bit, they will be on the hook for that. If they pull permits and something's not right when the inspector goes out to measure the setbacks. So I just want to make that clear. I'm okay with that as long as they're under that understanding also.
And, Madam Chair, if I may, we've grown a lot over the last few weeks. I don't think this will be an issue going forward. So if it's something that you guys don't want to waive, I understand the issue with the lot. So it's not as imperative for us.
As I say, Sonia, with the pace of everything in that office right now, do we want something that's out of the norm and doesn't follow?
I'm confident with this application. We've been around and around this thing. I think everybody's on the same page, but I'm just throwing that out there for the record.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no one else on the list who wishes to testify, but is there anyone in the room who would like to do so? All right, thank you. With that, can I get a motion to close the public hearing for H-2018-0032?
So moved.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on H-2018-0032. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Let's just start this one out. Yay for parking. Let's get that one out of the way.
Bill can throw something.
Bill, would you like to address the parking situation?
Madam Chair.
Am I up?
You could say there's too much parking? No.
I got to admit, when I read through this and saw those numbers, I actually put a little smiley face beside it. Yeah, I think, the way they've done things on that odd-shaped lot is fairly interesting, and I think it's the curve that makes it look more like, just a different structure. But, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and you're still going to have to go, you said some of those are public streets, right? Or private streets, right, Sonia?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is Perugia right here. Sorry. Yes, this is Perugia right here. That's a public street. Entrada is a public street, and then everything north of here is driveways or private streets. I'm not sure which they've landed on, but either way, we're good.
And Sonia, could you put up the amenity package? I think I saw some pictures that kept flipping through there. Gotta admit, when I read zipline, I thought, between the buildings?
Madam Chair.
Not a zipline built for me, I guess.
I'd like to share, well, I was just going to say, I think that I agree that this looks great. It's an odd-shaped lot. They've done a really good job. And other than the comments that I shared with the applicant, I'm in agreement with it. But I do have one question for staff. Do I understand correctly that there's going to be a right turn lane put in?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Pro, yes. ACHD did require a...
And out of curiosity, why would they not have required one at the apartment complex to the east? Or is there ever a possibility that they would try to put one in at the Franklin Apartments?
Are you referencing this property right here, where my pointer's at?
Yes, there's access, yeah. So there's not a right turn lane there, so I'm curious about why they're requesting a right turn lane into this.
I'm not absolutely sure.
Oh.
This one goes into an office designated area and then into the multifamily. And then this property was platted
Right off of Franklin.
2005, so it's been quite a while ago.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley.
I think we're starting to see a step up in quality a little bit. I like the diversity. I like that they're not just row apartments. I like the townhome look. I like the garage, the kind of the actual garage in the building itself. And they've got different styles. The alley loaded, so they actually have the people will walk out to the front and have an open area for each individual. I think they've done a very good job. I actually really like the apartment look too. It's different. It's unique. Not the same old standard look that we see all over the place. So I think they've actually done, in my opinion, look-wise, it looks really nice, and unique. So I think that looks good. I like the amenity package. Even a little dog park in there looked like
The super dog park?
Yeah.
Super dog park.
that's pretty sweet.
I thought that was the kids' play structures initially.
So, so given that, and then the way over parking, I am in support of this project.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Fitzgerald.
I agree. I like the live out under the MU. I think that's a good design quality. I think, and I agree with Commissioner Pro. I see what you're saying on the different. I think it's that you have apartment look, and then you go back into a residential feel.
Yeah.
Kind of a different. Got to go back into a neighborhood look, but I understand where you're coming from. I think it's a step up. It's more community oriented, and the open space and the package of amenities is very nice. So and it's the right space for this. That area is going to blow up with employment, and we're going to need to have somewhere for people to live.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I'm really liking more of these rear-loaded structures in the community area out front.
and Madam Chair, hats off to the applicant for working with your neighbor. That project next door was a hairy one for the staff a long time ago when the downturn happened, and I know it's gone through about 14 different owners, and so you guys working with them is a good thing, so we appreciate it.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Holland.
I tend to agree as well. I like the look of this project. I really appreciate when we can stack parking underneath the building. I think that makes a big difference for the having a garage underneath the townhome, so I really appreciate that. It's got a little bit of a look to some of the San Francisco feel you get when you walk kind of down some of those streets too. So I like the styling. I like that there's a diversity of product there. I'm in favor with what you've put together, so thank you.
Careful with comments like that, though, San Francisco.
Madam Chair?
Some people might.
Nope.
Commissioner Casanelli.
Hey, I like the parking numbers. I like the open space numbers. You know, in and of itself, it fits with the zoning. The only comment I have is that's what I don't have it has nothing really to do with this. It's just I'm going to make a kind of a personal notation. If anybody's driven 10 Mile at 5 o'clock at night right now, it's a joke already. It's becoming another Eagle Road, and we haven't even scratched the surface of what we're putting in there. We've probably in the last 6 months, I think we've approved probably 600 units at that intersection, within a quarter mile of that intersection. That's going to become a nightmare around there, but I can't take anything away from this project. I like this project. That's kind of my observation as a whole, what's going on 10 Mile is going to be as bad as Eagle Road.
Commissioner Wilson's going to fix that for us. He's told us.
We'll work on it. We'll work on it. Let's revisit it after.
But in overall, with this project, I would be in favor. I'm in favor of the project.
Who wants to tackle the motion?
So I guess, did we actually
Sorry.
cover the item
Oh,
point
yeah.
3.4 with the CC's, recording the plat after CCZ or leaving that alone? I don't know if I have a preference one way or the other.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Fitzgerald.
per exactly what you said, we are got so much going on. This team over here has got so many pieces and the ball's in the air, and the teeth come with certain pieces along the way, and I just don't think that's a good move. And if they can work together, I think we need to keep the process the way it is and move forward in that manner, just to help our staff out and make sure we're not pulling things out that don't make any sense. Having a plat in place is probably a good thing before you start figuring out the zoning compliance for it.
Make sure the surveyor does his job right.
Exactly.
And I would agree.
Okay. Madam Chair,
Commissioner Yearsley.
after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval of file number H2018-0032 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of May 17, 2018, with the following modifications. Item 1.2.3 to add the comment, if allowed by ACHD, for the storm swale. And then item 1.5.7, if I believe that's correct, delete that one in its entirety.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to recommend approval of file number H-2018-0032 Entrada Farms with modifications. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Madam Chair.
And we have one more item on our agenda
Madam
that
Chair.
has snuck in.
Yep, I have a couple housekeeping items to share with you this evening. The first is Chris and I are trying to determine or not whether we should have a Planning and Zoning Commission hearing on the July 5th. About a month ago, we presented some options to you and wanted to make sure that we got in front of that as we got closer to that date. So I'm just curious as whether or not it's your intentions to have that meeting on the 5th, or is it something that you'd like to push out? Is everyone going to be here that date after 4th of July? Or at least 4 of you or 5 of you, whatever we need for a quorum.
I'm planning to be in town.
Yeah, I'm now planning on being here, so,
I am here as well.
Here as well.
yeah.
I'm unknown.
I think everyone should take a holiday. That's what I think.
I would like the option to be gone.
Yeah, I think it's going to quickly turn into a long weekend for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm just worried if we have something on that night that's of interest to a lot of people. I think.
But everyone's dedication to service, some of us dedication to service is admirable.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, I mean, with staff and I mean, how's staff looking on that week? I mean, are you got a lot of people that want that week off? I mean, or days?
No one's requested it yet, so that's why I said we're going to get plans in place now so that we can anticipate. Currently,
Do we just not have it, or do we move it? Do we have like the 12th and the 19th? Or that one's already moved, isn't it? The 19th is already moved to the 26th? Is that the one that's moved? What's the one that's moved for the?
no, the only one we moved was the 6th, June 6th.
Okay,
at
there
this
wasn't
point.
the picnic or the
So
city
the picnic's
thing?
on June 14th.
Okay,
So that's why we're trying to nail down the 5th so we can just keep things normal and not change anything.
I think
Okay.
as a courtesy to the public, I think having it not be on the 5th would be, you know, because if there was something that came up that people wanted to attend, you know, you'd have a high potential chance of people not being there. So
Let's go with this at this point. We'll cancel it, and then we'll hope that we won't load ourselves up too much on the second hearing on July.
if we need
Madam
one though, can we put one on the 12th if it becomes obvious that there's just too much going on?
We can, if you want to have back-to-back, but as I mentioned to you at the beginning of the evening, we do have at least 5 projects right now that are possibly could be on the 21st of the June, but it may not make those dates, so
I think with
that's
as
the
much
case.
as is going on, I think we'd rather do the 12th and the 19th rather than one massive long, you know, have 2 real long ones that just drain everybody. And can we go ahead and schedule for that, or what do you guys
Sure.
feel? I mean, this
Sure,
is-
we can always schedule for a special meeting.
I think my recommendation would be to cancel it, and if we're getting too booked heavily on the 17th, maybe moving it up or something like that if possible, or.
Yeah, we would need to know by possibly next week or 2.
Well, we would.
Applicants will need to
I would
know,
think
won't
by
they?
our next meeting, we'd have a better feel, wouldn't we? And make that decision.
On the 6th, yeah,
I think
certainly.
go ahead and cancel the one on the 5th but hold out there that we could have a special meeting on the 19th if needed.
You mean on the 12th?
Or-
Would
Or
that, will
12th,
that give
yeah.
applicants the time to post and everything else that they need to do?
Yes. We need at least 30 days, from my understanding.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll just let you guys kind of judge that of what's coming through the pipe and,
Sounds good, because we could possibly have some findings that are due sometime at that point. Don't want to push them out too far.
yeah.
So it's good. So for now, we'll cancel the 5th, we'll keep the 12th in our back pocket, and we'll stay continued.
I like it.
All right.
Yeah, because with the 4th day before, the staff isn't going to want to be there. Yeah.
And then the last item I want to bring up with you, the department has currently hired a consultant to redo our comprehensive plan. They're going to be in the office or in Meridian the week of June 11th through the 15th. And they will want to schedule meetings with our stakeholders and our bodies to give input into that comprehensive plan. And so Caleb and Brian are putting together that effort, so you should see an email from them shortly asking you to attend and take part of those interviews for that week. So keep that on your books. I don't know exactly what date they're going to ask you to come in, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that we are going to reach out to you in the near future and invite you to participate in those interviews.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Casanelli?
before we go to the final stop, something I noticed on the motion I made on the Paramount storage, I did not mention in that, in the motion, that final sentence in there. Is that an issue? You look back at that.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, are you meaning prepare findings for the next hearing?
That is correct. Did
Yeah,
that
that's
need to
not
be in there?
necessary. We've got it covered for you.
Okay,
We just put it in there as courtesy.
okay. And
We
Madam
used to
Chair?
have to say it, and we missed it a few times. I think they finally just covered it
Goes
some
without
other
saying.
way because we couldn't handle it.
Well then, Madam Chair,
Commissioner Casanelli?
I make another motion
Yes, please.
that we adjourn?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn the planning and zoning meeting for May 17th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.